Hello, church. Welcome to our FGAKL online devotions today. I would like to share with us today from Philippians chapter 1, verse 12 to verse 25. But I would like to begin with us by asking us a question. Have you ever experienced a difficult season, a difficult situation in your life before? I think it's quite apparent to us that none of us here, as long as we're living, breathing on this world, none of us are immune to trials, none of us are immune to pain, none of us are immune to difficult situations. And Jesus himself actually made it clear that in this world you will face trials, you will face tribulations. But I believe as believers, as Christians, we can still experience joy in the midst of trials because we have God on our side. But how? How do we experience joy in the midst of the trials that we face? I would like to share with us 3 thoughts today. Number 1 is that we can experience joy in the midst of trials that we face, by gaining God's perspective. In Philippians 1 verse 12, it says that now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. Paul is one that we know has suffered many plentiful for Christ. He has suffered death threats after death threats, living in prison cells most of his ministry life. Up to this point, for Paul to say that, hey, actually everything that I've been through is not wasted because it has actually served to advance the gospel. And I love it so much because Paul did not give any excuses about what has actually happened to him, but he took initiative. I usually do is I will complain, I will compare, I will say, God, how come my neighbor seem to be doing so much better than me? Why are you blessing him or her more than you are blessing me? I've been committing, I've been reading my Bible, I've been praying every day, but yet I still don't receive your blessing. But what Paul did here was he immediately shifted his perspective to gain God's perspective of what is currently happening in his situation. You see, when you begin to gain God's perspective, you will see that actually God is working something through you rather than what is happening to you. A lot of times when bad things happen to us, we immediately put the focus on us. Why is this happening to me? But the perspective that Paul wants to show us today is that what is God doing through me? What is he doing in the midst of my pain that I'm suffering today? What is he actually doing through me? That is the perspective that Paul had. He saw his situation from a perspective of purpose rather than of pain. A lot of times we always see it through the lens of pain and through the lens of suffering, but Paul saw it through the lens of God, which is there is a purpose that I am going through this. My second thought is that we must commit to God by knowing God's purpose for us. When Paul supernaturally met Jesus Christ on the way to Damascus, his name was converted from Saul to Paul. Jesus gave him a new name. And with that new name comes a new purpose. That his purpose from that day onwards was not to persecute Jesus Christ, but to proclaim Jesus Christ everywhere that God sent him. When you encounter God, when you meet with God, he will give you a new purpose. In fact, in the other letters that Paul wrote, your old self is gone, and that you are now made new in Christ. In Colossians, when you are made new in Christ, he will give you a new purpose. The question that we need to ask ourselves today is, do you know God's purpose for your life? Do you know why he has placed you in your school? Do you know why he has placed you in your family? Do you know why he has placed you in your current job today? Because we believe that God is perfect. And when God is perfect, we believe that he doesn't make any mistake. So it's not a mistake that you are currently where you are today. It's not a mistake that you are currently in your job, in this school, in this family, in this relationship. Because where God has placed you, it is always with intent and it's always with a purpose in his mind. But it's up to us to discover it. And Paul allowed God's purpose to live out through his pain, to live out through his trials, to live out through his situation, as he postured himself in the hands of God, knowing that God has a bigger plan than me, knowing that God's plan is bigger than my pain, knowing that God's plan is bigger than my struggle that I'm going through today, bigger than my problems. And we need to come to that place to realize that God's destiny for you is bigger than your depression. His plans for you is bigger than any problems that you are facing today. We can walk with our heads held high, not expecting that my problems will go away, although it will be nice, but knowing that he who began a good work in me will be faithful to complete it, knowing that greater is He who lives in me than he who is in this world, knowing that God is bigger than anything that I can potentially face in this world. So we can experience joy when we commit ourselves to knowing God's purpose for our lives. My third thought is that we must have perseverance. It says that, convinced of this, I will remain and continue with all of you for your progress and your joy in faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Jesus Christ because of my coming to you again. You see, a lot of times we view perseverance as moving forward. We view perseverance as moving on, progressing. I must hang on as I race through, as I journey through the finish line. But Paul here is giving us a different approach about what perseverance is. He says that I will continue to remain with all of you. Paul's desire is to be with God. Paul's desire is to live this world, to be with Jesus Christ. But he says, nonetheless, it is better for me to remain. So I will remain for your cause, for your good. Perseverance doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it also means staying put, remaining at where we are at. Because, like it or not, the thought of moving forward, the thought of progressing in my career, in my relationship, in my life in general is very attractive, it's very glamorous. But sometimes God will ask us to remain at where we are at. Perhaps is God asking you today to remain at where you're at right now because He still has a purpose that is yet to be fulfilled in you? Is God asking you to remain in your current job, in your current company, in your current position, in your current school, in your current class, in your current, colleges or wherever that He has placed you? Perhaps God is asking you to stay put, remain. Don't think about moving forward. Yes, the grass is always greener on the other side. But if we remain faithful to persevere through, to water the grass that is beneath us, then we will begin to see God's promises and God's plans to be fulfilled through me. And so sometimes God will give us the faith to go, but He will also give us the grace to stay. So we need to persevere through, not just always by going, but by remaining, by being faithful with the little that God has entrusted to us. Then He will give us more. He will entrust us with more. Let us persevere through our trials so that God's purpose are fulfilled through me, and that others will be blessed through me, because He says that I will persevere, I will remain, so that you have ample cause to glorify God. So in conclusion, I would like to conclude today by saying that we can experience joy when we commit ourselves to gain the perspective of God, by knowing His plans for our lives, His purposes for our lives, and having that perseverance to remain and to be faithful at where we are at today, and then we will begin to see, we begin to experience the joy that whatever that I go through today, I know that God is with me. I know that He is comforting me. I know that He's guiding me. I know that He's leading me at every step that I take. So my final thought, what is hindering you from committing to God more in this season? Number 2 is, do you know God's purpose for your life in this season? And number 3, can you be more persistent to remain, to persevere, to remain at where you're at until you see God come through for you? That's it for today's devotion. Thank you for tuning in today, and God bless.